Take your positions. Take your positions.
Everyone, can I get you to grab a seat and we'll make a start? Well, good morning and welcome. It's great to see you all here, although I actually can't see very much because of the lights. I just wanted to let you know that we are recording the meeting this morning because we've got some staff that are unable to be here today, a group of people, and we're recording that so that they'll be able to watch that this afternoon. But I would like to welcome you all back to Emmanuel. I'm going to welcome those who are new to the college in just a moment, and we'll invite you to come out the front so that not to embarrass you, but just to enable everybody to put names and faces together. But as we begin, I would like to begin with our acknowledgement and acknowledge that Emmanuel College acknowledges the land on which we learn, create and grow is the traditional land of the Peek Wurrong of the Goonja Marama Nation. We pay our respect to their elders, past and present. And we also acknowledge and respect the cultural diversity of students, families and staff represented in the Emmanuel community in the past, present and future. We also support the principles of a reconciled Australia for all its people and in the interests of our children, tomorrow's leaders. Now, we have just spent time in church praying for the start of the year, for the year to be good to us and for us to be good to one another and good at what we do. But I have a short prayer here also, just to focus our own attention here at Emmanuel. And we are beginning the 2023 year. It's our 151st year, as you will know. 151 years since the Sisters of Mercy established the first Catholic school that was here on this site. Opened on July the 1st, 1872 by Mother Philomene Maguire. I'm a member of the parish there at St Joseph's, or now Star of the Sea, and last Sunday in the readings there, two readings, one from Isaiah and the other the Gospel of Matthew, there was a repetition of the words, "The people that lived in darkness has seen a great light." They appear twice there. And they refer to, or at least in the Gospel anyway, they refer to the illumination Jesus' model of living provides us who may otherwise really stumble around in darkness seeking our way. Catherine Macaulay, who sent her friend Philomene here to establish this school, encouraged her sisters to be like shining lamps, illuminating the way for others and dispelling the darkness. And as employees of this Catholic school in the Mercy tradition, it's really our responsibility to be that light of Christ in this generation. That responsibility falls to us. And perhaps just linking to the Gospel reading today, and what Bishop Paul picked up on was the fact that if we're going to be good at that, it requires a little bit of self-reflection and evaluation. We're all prone to seeing the splinter in someone else's eye before actually recognising that in our own. And I think that we need to do that. Indeed, we do need to do that to be the best we can be at what we're called to do and to be that light. So this morning our own prayer begins just in the name of the Father and the Son and of the Holy Spirit. Amen. We gather in faith, we gather in hope, we gather in love, we gather as carriers of the light. We gather together in this 151st year, members of the community of Emmanuel College. We stand on the shoulders of those who came before us, and we bear the lamp to guide those who are part of this community by the right path. We pray our efforts and our actions in 2023 honour the commitment and the contribution of those who came before us. We seek in our time the continued growth of this dynamic learning community and to be shining lamps to those around us. St. Joseph, pray for us. In the name of the Father and the Son and the Holy Spirit. Amen. Thank you for joining in and for responding. Well, we begin 2023 and to the best of my knowledge, we begin the year with 26 new staff. Those of you who were involved know that we were continuing to staff positions right up until the very end of the year. Indeed, some of the money being locked in after the majority of you had finished for the year. So we welcome 26 new staff, a number who are also returning. We're welcoming this year 234 Year 7 students across 9 homerooms. And for me this year's sort of a special year because I have a grandson who's starting Year 7 at Emmanuel this year. I'm not sure whether that's good, bad or otherwise. But he is a gorgeous kid with great talent, lots of potential. Just like all of our other Year 7s joining us this year. We also have around about 21 other students who are joining us across the other year levels. And I think, Michael, you still have an interview this afternoon, I believe. So that process is still continuing as we speak. With that number of Year 7 students starting, we are full at Year 7. We've had a little bit of pressure there over the holidays to accept some more students, but to all intents and purposes, we're full. We do have vacancies at 8 and 9. We're full at 10. Vacancies at Year 11 and 12. Interestingly, we've had more students than you might consider normal moving in, relocating to the school into Year 11 and 12 this year. Of the students who exited at the end of last year, 14 of those students gained employment, apprenticeships or traineeships. We saw over the course of last year almost unprecedented, I think, numbers of students leaving and gaining apprenticeships. But I was just talking to David earlier in the week, and that process has now slowed down a little bit because the funding that the government was making available for apprenticeships has gone back to that much lower level where it was before, and so we're seeing fewer students taking up apprenticeships. But the last year has been a record, and even since the end of last year there's been 14 going into employment and apprenticeships. We've seen 6 of our students that exited, their families actually relocating from the area, 8 students going off to boarding school, and I think we had 1, possibly 2, relocate to another school in Warrnambool. But all of those numbers leave us with an enrolment somewhere around the 1,270 for next week, which is the highest it will have been in quite a number of years. And I hope and pray it's still that number when we get to Census Day in a couple of weeks' time. So that's the snapshot there. Now, perhaps a snapshot of who our new staff are. Some of these people you may have already met with induction and different things that have been going on. And I am going to ask each of them just to come forward. As I said, it's not to embarrass you. It's to help everybody else to put a name and a face together. So David, would you like to make your way down to the front? Kick that off for us. David is our new Year 7 coordinator and will also be teaching math. I invite Rachel Carter to come forward, and Rachel is joining Learning Diversity and indeed is one half of the Learning Diversity Coordination duo, is also teaching or involved in literacy in the school. Jill Slater, who has relocated from Melbourne, is teaching English. Jill, you're most welcome. Nerida, teaching textiles and food. Sam, Japanese. Sam's children are starting at the school this year as well. Andrea Smith, who is teaching math. Julia, math also. Come on down. Melissa, who hasn't had to travel too far, so that's good, in English and RE. Tina, joining us also from not too far away in the areas of art and visual communication. And Hannah O'Neill in music tuition. I'm going to go on to the next slide because there are more, so just bear with me. Please welcome Emily, who is going to be involved in applied learning and teaching in that area there, working closely with Beck Down. Christine, teaching math. Yes, there you are. Come on down, Christine. Rachel, joining us. Many of you, I think, will know Rachel. Here for a short time last year and returned. So health, PE, English. Thanks, Rachel. Michelle. Hello, Michelle. Joining us in math and I think predominantly junior math. Julia, RE, English and Humanities. Welcome, Julia. Melissa Lassou. I'm not going to pronounce the rest of your name. Melissa, are you there? She's an apology today. One of the people who will be actually watching the recording. Hannah in administration. Hannah is also a parent. Christine is back with us in admin. Ruby, where are you, Ruby? Ruby is joining us in the development office, taking over from Julie Lynch and all things admin there in the development office. And Alice going into wellbeing. I apologise, Nadia. How could I do that? In the front row and missed out. Would you like to make all of these staff welcome to Emmanuel College? all of these people joined us here on Wednesday for a full day for induction, and it is a very, very full day. We talk about information overload, but it was part of our way of welcoming them to Emmanuel College, and that baton now passes to you to continue that welcome and ensure they find their way and everything that they need to be able to do the job that they've committed to here at the college. Thank you very much. Now we also have 6 new trainees joining us, and I love this part because while I don't really like embarrassing the new staff, I love embarrassing the trainees. So come on down, just all come down at once. Molly, who's in Learning Diversity, and due to a recent development, Molly is also going to be helping us in flute tuition. Henry in Learning Diversity, Ruben in Arts and Media, Jordan in Sport and Rec, Karen in Sport and Rec, and Alice in Admin and Events. Please give them a round of applause and make them feel welcome. And because you're young and fit, you can do the rotation very quickly. Off you go. Thank you. Now, we also have a large number of staff that we're welcoming back in one form or another, or we're welcoming them into ongoing permanent positions at the college, which is great to be able to do. I'm not going to ask these people to come down because the majority of you do know them, but we welcome back Brooke, Carmel and Debbie from extended periods of medical leave, and it's just fantastic to see that you've got through that period of time and now returning to your place of work. Welcome back to Ruby, who was on leave for 12 months last year, to Liz, James and Helen, who each had long service leave during term 4 last year. And then the following staff have all now joined us. They've all been here in one capacity or another over a period of time, some a lot longer than others, but have joined us in a permanent capacity going forward. So we welcome Sharon, Bryce, Ben, Abby and Tim, Jackie D, Chris, Emma, Rob, Anna and Naomi, and Sophie, who was with us in Wellbeing there last year. And we acknowledge Rosina, who's replacing Beck Thompson this year, and Sian, who's replacing James Laidler during semester 1 this year. You might just give them an acknowledgement. There were a few late changes that occurred after the majority of you had gone on holidays, and after a period of leave in the second half of last year, Sue Gray has submitted her resignation. Michael Owen will be on long service leave, returning in 2024. Sally Dimke, who has been in our music area, has resigned to care for her ageing father. Airlie, who's also in the musical area, is taking medical leave this term, possibly during the semester. Those of you who know Airlie will know that she's a flute player, and unfortunately she has a condition at the moment that's impacting on her ability to be able to actually play flute, and so she has requested time to recover from that. And those of you who know Morven know that she had been waiting for surgery very patiently for significant back surgery. It still hasn't happened, and she is continuing to wait for that. And we'll welcome her back as soon as that has occurred and she has recovered. To the best of my knowledge, there have been no new babies other than those that we knew of just at the very end of last year. And so we do congratulate Julian and Sean. I don't know what the odds are of 2 staff members from the one place being in the in the maternity ward within hours of each other. Okay, there you go. What are the odds of that? So that the odds of that would be even greater. I've had no word from Tamara yet, so to the best of my knowledge, she's still going. Somebody did see her down the street the other day, and she was certainly still pregnant then. So we we wait patiently and expectantly with her, and look forward to the joy that new arrival will bring all of us, but certainly her and Lockie. Okay. I did want to acknowledge the following staff and congratulate them. Donna and Jacinta over the last 2 years have been studying the Masters of Educational Leadership, which concluded at the end of last year. And I think it's a really major achievement, and I'd like to acknowledge and congratulate them for the work that they put into that whilst also maintaining their day jobs. This year, Simone and Michael are undertaking the RE program that the diocese runs and sponsored by the diocese, which is great. Abby and Isaac have both been selected into the Country Diocese Leadership program, which is great because both of them are aspiring to leadership in the school, and indeed Abby has taken her first steps into that this year. So congratulations to both of them. Justin's been selected from Victorian Mercy Schools to go to Dublin this year. Now, he was actually selected, I think it was 3 years ago.
I booked into the Guinness storehouse.
It's probably where part of the program runs from, I imagine. Yeah. No, Justin, we wish you well for that because you were selected 3 years ago. The bags were practically packed and ready to go, and COVID struck, and that's been the end of it since then. So all being well, you will get there this year, and we do really sincerely wish you well. I'm sure there'd be other congratulations that could be added to this list, but the one that I've added there to the bottom, having seen just a week or so ago the performance of Shrek down at the Lighthouse Theatre, which wouldn't have occurred if it wasn't for the Emmanuel students, both past and present, and a whole lot of people connected, staff and family members connected to the school. It was an amazing performance, and we congratulate all of them. Some thank yous to people who have been working now for some weeks preparing the school, but also for things that happened at the end of last year where we didn't have any sort of meeting or opportunity to acknowledge them. The awards presentation was really successful. It was great to have our families and for first time 3 years, everybody back in the Emmanuel Centre for that. So thank you to Suzanne, Michael, Justin, Claire, and all the senior leaders, all of the mentors and homeroom teachers and all of those people that were on stage to present awards. It was a very positive and rewarding evening. To Jacinta for the end of year mass and for the Vinnie's Christmas appeal. Jacinta, did you have a good result with the appeal? It is a thanks to all of you for contributing to that. To the Staff Association for the end of year lunch and the recognition of departing staff, a great positive vibe there. Thank you. Sophie, thank you for the video, the staff video, really appreciated. Now perhaps getting more so to this year, to Jason Beveridge, to Glenn and Jack for preparation right across the school. If you didn't think that the grounds looked great this morning when you drove in with the sun shining and the lawn mowed, well, I don't know, nothing will impress you because they've worked really hard and the place looks fantastic and there's so much behind the scenes. It's easy to see when the lawns get mowed, but there's so much behind the scenes that they do that you don't know about, and they've been working away for weeks. Likewise, our cleaners, in particular Michelle and Sarah, have been working for weeks now, getting things ready. The area that's extended over there in G Block, that always causes lots of dirt and dust and whatever, and they've got that clean and ready to go. To Sam, Pete, Tom and Logan, 400 and something, nearly, I think with staff laptops, must be close to 500 laptops that have been prepared and readied for people to use. So thank you to them. To Shirley and the senior leaders who on Wednesday conducted the induction day for all of our new staff, and to Melissa Crothers and to Montana for the yearbook. Now the yearbook is at the printers. We set a goal last year to get that yearbook completed and out at a much earlier time than we've ever managed before. And it's only a short way away, I think, Montana, isn't it? Yeah. Okay. Also, just casting an eye back to last year, I'd like to have a look at or go through our results from last year for our Year 12 students, because again, whilst I shared this by email, we didn't really get a chance to do this publicly. I want to start by thanking the Year 12 teachers for the year, for the efforts that they put in, but I thank all of those who laid the foundations for them to be able to work with in Year 12. Our congratulations to Jace Nepean with his ATAR of 99.95. And I've just put there, is this a first for Emmanuel? There's people that have been here a lot longer than I have. I think that it is. I don't think that we've ever achieved that score before. That's a perfect score, as you know. You cannot do better than that. And there are only 37 students out of around about 50,000 in Victoria who achieved that score. And I think most of you would know that he did that last year whilst his mum, Debbie, spent a significant amount of time in hospital. And talking to Debbie the other day, she said he visited every single day. So he juggled all of those things. So it's an extraordinary achievement. It clearly says a great deal about that young man, but it says something about you and us and this school as well, that we've been able to do that. Because I think you can probably count the number of true country or regional schools in the state that have achieved that sort of score. You know, they often talk about, I think it's Clarendon, who college in Ballarat, who will get lots of these scores. And they'll be in the paper every single year. But I don't think that Ballarat is country. Maybe it is regional. But the sorts of services and everything else that are there makes it very different to living, working and learning in the country. Jace is heading to Canberra next week, Friday today week. And he's studying a Bachelor of Philosophy Science with honours at ANU, which interestingly is the same course that Jacob Gome is doing, Jacob being our Dux of 2 years ago. So a huge congratulations to Jace, because his work ethic, those of you who taught him know this, his work ethic was extraordinary. And even talking to some of the trainees at lunch on Wednesday when they were here for induction, I asked them what were their thoughts about Jace's achievement. They acknowledged that probably from year 7, they knew how hard he was working. So that says a lot too. In acknowledging Jace, I do not want to take anything away from the next 2 or indeed any of our students, particularly those who gained the really great study scores and ATARs. Congratulations to Zach and to Will with ATARs of 98.4 and 98.35 respectively. They've been offered pharmacy and osteopathy, and I love the story about Will, who, as you know, his brother was Dux a couple of years ago. Will's ATAR was 0.5 higher. Great story. The perfect study scores there. Congratulations to Jace with 3 of those. One achieved in year 11 for physics, and then to Darcy O'Keefe for literature and Clara for German. Catherine, where are you? Catherine, I don't know of any student that's got a 50 in our school for literature before. the math science teachers in the room will think that, these humanities subjects are pretty easy. But having my background is English and literature, I've never taught a student that's got a 50, and I think it's exceptionally hard to achieve that. So well done to Darcy. 41 study scores above 40, those students, of course, in the top 10% in the state, and 8 of those subject duxers coming from Year 11, which augurs well for this year too. Congratulations to Joshua Tom, who's our VCAL Dux, and he's commencing round about now, I think, Beck, his diesel mechanic apprenticeship. He's been working, harvesting and so on over the holidays, but he gained this apprenticeship through his work placement as part of his VCAL course last year. So that's a terrific achievement. And I've just put the point in there because, all that information it's all good, but it also speaks to the very diverse range of students and abilities that we have in this school. And I don't think we do. We provide all of them with an excellent opportunity, with an excellent Year 12 experience. We know some don't make the most of it or take advantage of it, but we provide it to all and equally. We have the Year 12 Awards Assembly next week. There will be parents and visitors and guests at that. I expect you to dress professionally for that on Thursday, and it will be just great to welcome some of those people back on Thursday. Just really quickly, a snapshot of those results in figures. I don't expect from the last 5 years, and I don't expect you to sort of go through all of them, but if you do cast your eye over them, you'll see that there's a good, healthy increase there in each of those areas in 2022, with an increase, a rise there in the percentage of students above those particular benchmarks. The one thing that we haven't been able to shake or stir or move is that median study score. It remains stubbornly where it is, which is below the state average. The state average is 30, and it would be my dream before I leave here that we see it get to 30. I acknowledge that there's a correlation between the point that I'm making here and the one that I made just before, second last dot point, about the extraordinary diverse range of students that we have in this school. Not all of them are going to get the sorts of results that we see reflected here. I understand that. But I do believe that our median should, at the very least, be where the state average is. And so, we never stop trying, we never stop growing, we never stop working towards that sort of growth and improvement that is reflected there. It is only a number, but it's a number that all sorts of people, institutions, media, etc., look at to make a judgment about a school, because they don't look here. They don't look here to see what schools are actually doing for their students. They look there and make an assessment based on that, rightly or wrongly. In terms of where our students are going from, or what we know at this stage based on the offers, the tertiary offers. So 161 Year 12 students last year, 7 in VCAL, 137 completed a scored program, with 17 going unscored. So far, first of all, the VTAC applications, there were 120 of those from the 161 students, which represents an increase on the year before. Going back 2 years ago when we were looking at these figures, off the back of COVID, the first year of COVID, these numbers took a real tumble, and they've been gradually returning. And so we have seen it getting back to where it has been in the past, and I think that represents the greatest certainty that our students see in the future at the moment. There are 123 first round offers. The two rounds come out in January and December. There's a February one that's still pending. You'll see that the figures don't correlate, the 120 and the 123. That's because some students received more than one offer. And round about half of them received their first preference. So looking reasonable. And where they're going to, you can see a snapshot here. I don't have the location figures at the moment, but on the left there you can see the institutions and the number of students who are heading there. We don't know how many of them will take a gap year at this stage. Anecdotally, we know that that's usually fairly high. Interestingly, there's an increase there in all of those figures with the exception of Melbourne University, and it sort of goes up and down from one year to the next, but there's a little bit of an increase there in all of those figures, which is terrific. David, is there any comment that you need to make? Thank you. All right, now, moving on to this year. Last year, when I looked at this slideshow last year, there was slides and slides and slides about COVID. Well, not now. It's a little bit more normal, or a more normal year as anticipated anyway. But we know that COVID's still present in the community, so we just need you to be aware of these points, and I think that you are, but just to reiterate them. If you're testing positive, you have to quarantine at home for 5 days. That doesn't mean 5 work days, it's 5 days in total, so if you test positive over the weekend, that's where the count starts. You advise Jason Maloney and complete a sick leave application, and our sick leave is moving to ESM 360. We've got information for you about that on Monday morning. Essentially, you're doing what you do for any other form of being sick, letting Jason know. In classrooms, leaving windows, doors open where it's practical to do that. Where air purifiers are available, turn them on and let them run for the day and turn them off at the end of the day. We've got plenty of rats and masks. They're located at the main office, so feel free to, as you're walking past there, ask for a box of those and have it either in your, masks in your office and rats at home and so on. We have plenty of them. Okay, I want to move on with some good news in regards to our Capital Works program. Capital Works referring to building and development and improvements. Before I look at the info on the right-hand side, I just wanted to give you a snapshot of what we have done over the last few years. It's actually a lot. If we include the Emmanuel Centre, this building, the refurbishment of this building, the preparation of the portables there so that we could bring another year level over to this campus from Rice Campus, the library refurb, the science A-wing and the cafe space. We've spent $21 million in that period of time. It's not a small amount, and we haven't paid for it all. You know, we've still got loans from banks that from the bank that we are continuing to pay back, and will continue to do so for a period of time. That 21 million seems a lot. It's actually pales into insignificance when we look at the cost of the next program, which will be the Edmund Rice Centre. And we're proceeding with the Edmund Rice Centre this year. We got word at 5 minutes to midnight on the night before Christmas or something like that, that we will receive $2 million from the federal government for that project. And that is what's enabling us to go ahead. So we plan at this stage to call for tenders for this project around April. We hope to be completed the project by the end of 2024 so that we can get you into the Edmund Rice Centre and be set up and ready to go for the students to occupy the building at the start of 2025. And at that point, we will then relinquish the Rice campus, which will return to the parish for their use, development, or whatever it is that they decide to do with that site. We're looking at a project that's going to cost $17 million. You see the point that I'm making when you look at the 21 and the 17. We've spent that over, 6 years or something, and here we have a single project worth almost as much. But as I said, the federal government grant is what's making it possible for us to go ahead with that. We plan to run a capital appeal, just as we did with the Emmanuel Centre, with a view to raising $1 million. Our community was extraordinarily supportive of the school and everything that we were doing when we ran that appeal for the Emmanuel Centre, and we're hoping that we receive a similar response this time around to raise $1 million. And then the balance of that is essentially, it needs to be borrowed. We borrow from the Catholic Development Fund. I said bank before, which might have been misleading. The Catholic Development Fund, it operates like a bank, but it operates specifically to provide funding to Catholic schools, institutions, universities, hospitals, aged care facilities, etc. And it does so at an interest rate that is lower than whatever the market rate is. And that's one of the ways, or one of the things that helps us, it's that little boost that we get by borrowing from them and helps us to afford the project. My last point there is one that most of you don't have to manage a budget. It's generally speaking that is coordinators in one way, one form or another. But this, I guess, affects everybody in the school. Budgets for 2023 have been done incredibly carefully, knowing that we need to go ahead with this project. In some cases, budgets have not increased from last year. In a very, very small number of cases, budgets have reduced a little bit. In some other cases, they have gone up, reflecting student numbers and things like that. But our budgets are tight this year, and we need absolutely everybody on board with the budget being the budget. We cannot afford any budget to run over this year, because anything that runs over then compromises everything else that we're doing here. I don't expect you to calculate, or know the nitty-gritty of that. I just need your awareness of that and what we're doing, and working with your team leaders who manage those budgets to ensure that they work. Okay. Any questions on that one? It's an important one. If not, I want to go on and have a look now at something that was sort of happening at the end of the year, or was incomplete at the end of 2022. And that is the multi-employer agreement update. The campaign for the negotiation for the agreement ran throughout a fair portion of 2022, and it was incomplete at the end of the year. So those of you who were interested, went on holidays not knowing what the outcome of this is. What I can say is, what you already know, is that the salary increases attached to the new agreement, even though the agreement has not been finalised, all of the salary increases have been locked in and paid, and will continue to be paid throughout 2023, and that where back pay was owing to any person, which was anyone who was on staff last year, it was back paid to 2021. And I do want to acknowledge Renee, who's sitting halfway up there. The amount of work that this created was phenomenal, and Renee, thank you. Sometimes there were errors in this, and I can assure you the errors were not on Renee's part. There were errors in information provided to the school from the Catholic Education Commission in terms of the calculations and percentage increases and so on. So that part has been done. The negotiations continued right up to the 11th hour. And on the 21st of December last year, principals were provided with a briefing in regards to where the agreement was at, because it was pretty close to being finalised by the end of last term. When I say finalised, the negotiation was finalised, ready to put an agreement together that then has to go to Fair Work Australia and be ratified and then rolled out. And we've been told to expect that the new agreement will be in place by or somewhere in term 2 this year. Until then, we're not agreementless. We continue to operate under the 2018 agreement. So all of the terms and conditions and so on that protect your work or the responsibilities that go with that all remain in place until the new one kicks in. Having said that, Emmanuel is still going to apply a couple of assumptions from the agreement based on what we know. And some of those we will apply from term 1 rather than waiting until term 2 when the agreement is ratified. So the scheduled class time, or I should say the reduction in scheduled class time, we made a commitment to that last year. And some of the new teachers that you saw standing here this morning are teachers that we employed in addition, because the reduction in face-to-face teaching time means we need to have more teachers. So we have done that. And that begins from the start of this year. We're not waiting until term 2, or we're not doing another approach as some schools are doing, where they're shortening lessons rather than actually reducing the teaching time. Time in lieu is a really big component of this agreement, and we will introduce that in term 1 for camps only. And we'll do that so that we've got it started, so that we can get a feel for how it's going to work and what the implications are and where things maybe are difficult or challenging. So essentially we're going to run a pilot with time in lieu during term 1 for camps, and then roll it out in full once the MEA is finalised and ratified. The extras reduction that we anticipate will be included in this agreement will be applied from whenever that agreement comes into being and we know what the number is. And we'll apply the maximum 2 hours, 2 1-hour meetings after hours or after school meetings per week. And we'll do that from the start of the year. We expect that that's coming. We'll start it straight away. I need to go into time in lieu a little bit more detail, and I'm sorry that it will seem tedious. But time in lieu was and has been the major delay to the MEA being reached, being agreed between the negotiating parties. It applies to school-directed activities, so that itself is going to need some definition. And the really important thing that we need to understand is that time in lieu has not been funded by government. So the government has already agreed in the state system to time in lieu and provided no resources for it, and the same thing is going to happen for our schools too. And if you were looking at any media, newspapers over the holidays, you'll have seen that it's already, because it has already kicked in state schools, and is beginning to develop there as an issue because of the fact that it is unfunded by government. So it's proved quite difficult for some schools, and making some activities unviable in those schools. As I say, if you're following the media over the holidays, you may have seen articles referring to that. So, knowing that this was coming, Emmanuel proposed the following arrangement to the Consultative Committee in term 4 last year. And as I said, we'll trial it as a pilot this term until the agreement is finalised. Year 7, 8, 10 and 11 camps and retreats will attract a day of time in lieu. Our 7, 8, 10, 11 camps are all 3 days, 2 nights, making that sort of fairly, they are contained in 1 week, and as you know, they either go Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, or Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. We will provide, as a trial this term, a day's time in lieu for those who are attending camp full time, and including the overnight component of it, and we'll allocate that within that camp week. So as you know, not all the students who are not on camp are not at school. It gives us a little bit of breathing space to try and make that work. For the Year 9 immersions, we will allocate 2 days of time in lieu, because the Canberra trip is for a full week, and then the local immersions are involved in that as well. And those days will be allocated during those local immersion weeks. Okay. Part-time staff, we will pay for the extra day or time that they attend at the camp, until we've got details of what time in lieu looks like for part-time people. I'll just mention the last point and I want to come back to something. To the best of our knowledge, the new agreement will provide no time in lieu for overseas trips. It doesn't really seem fair, I guess, but that's what we're hearing. Now, if that's the case, we will apply the local arrangement that we already had in place long before time in lieu was ever in the agreement for teachers, and we will provide 2 days time in lieu for those staff going on overseas trips, which was a local agreement that was negotiated with the Consultative Committee 3 or something years ago. I'm just going back to talk about now, why have we said that we'll allocate a day for those camps, or in the case of the Year 9 immersions, 2 days? We don't have the agreement to know exactly what the detail is, and the devil is always in the detail. We can, however, look at how it has been done in state schools and get a reasonable idea of how it may apply to us. Now, in the case of camps there, the time in lieu is sort of not an automatic thing. It is calculated on the basis of how much time you spend there, who is on duty overnight and who is not. For example, time in lieu is not applied when you're sleeping. It's expected that someone will be on duty, and that duty person will attract time in lieu, but everybody else won't, and so on it goes. It's quite complex and potentially very, very messy. And we've taken the view that it would perhaps be a lot easier to give everybody who is full-time, is there for the duration and overnight, 1 day. And there's an equity and a fairness in that for all involved. We've got to work through the part-time consideration, but as I said, we are, certainly for now, we will be paying part-time staff to be there. We have in the past, so it's a continuation of that. I'm hoping that's making sense, because there's more. When we talk about time in lieu, I think we have to make note of what Emmanuel has done in the past to recognise the fact that our staff go above and beyond normal hours and so on. And so, for example, in the past, we've organised to have meeting-free weeks when there are particular events on. Very rarely is there ever meetings on during camp weeks and so on, parent-teacher weeks and all of that sort of thing. So we already have meeting-free weeks. We have midterm breaks in term 3 and 4. They're not gazetted, they're not approved by anybody other than the school, as a return and a recognition of what staff do. Our gazetted public holiday is May Race Day, so we all get that. We finished teaching up to 8 days prior to the gazetted date. That's this year. Last year was even more. The school is closed 3 days before the gazetted date. All of these days are coming back to our staff at Emmanuel in recognition of the work, the load, the job that we do, the challenges that we all face in what we do. There's effectively a week, a bonus week at this school already. So I'm putting it out there because this is going to have to be looked at alongside and reconciled with whatever the new agreement tells us about time in lieu. And we're going to have a fairly serious conversation around whether or not do we retain those days? Or do we work to the gazetted date, like our state school colleagues? This is not a threat. This is not a proposal. These are the things this is why the time in lieu has been so challenging for us. The other reason why time in lieu has been particularly challenging has been that it's not an even playing field when it comes to country schools and metropolitan schools. And the schools in this diocese advised their director that we wanted this to be accounted for in some way in this agreement. Because you all know that if you're taking an excursion or a sport event or something to Melbourne, you either go the night before, you leave here very early in the morning, and you get home late in the evening. Compared to a Melbourne school that can jump on a tram or get a bus or whatever it might be and do all those same things within the space of the school day that we cannot do. So this is why, a one model fits all does not really serve us particularly well in country schools. So this is all part of what's got to be resolved before we fully implement this in our school. All right, I'm just making the point there that one of those time or midterm breaks there has always been recognition of the fact that we need you to be here for open night. That depending on your year level and so on, that you will attend parent information sessions and all of those sorts of things. So that's why we've done those things before, but I think we've gone maybe above and beyond that. So it'll all have to be reconciled against that when we finally get an agreement. Repeat the point there that the time in lieu applies to school-directed activities. It's not something that any one of us can say, well, I've done this and therefore I'm going to take time. It will only be for school-directed activities, camps, excursions, sports, different things like that. And we're potentially going to have to look at what the impact of that is on some excursions and activities. I think we've been really generous in the past about some of the activities and some of the excursions that we have enabled to run. And they've all been good, don't get me wrong. But they're not necessarily school-directed activities in the sense that they're not necessarily essential to a curriculum or to teaching and learning. That could be debated, I know, but they're things that we've got to work through. We will put into place an approvals committee so it's not just one person sort of arbitrating on this, but we'll put together an approvals committee that will meet weekly to look at excursions and PD until requests and determine what school-directed activities are. And we'll start that straight away, but that will also be informed by the new agreement once it arrives. It's a lot to digest, I'm sorry. There's still more. The next stage of thinking about time in lieu is that, well, first of all, the fine print, the devil in the detail, we don't have the agreement yet. That will determine absolutely what happens. We're still waiting for that. But providing time in lieu, it assumes that we have set times of work We have set school hours. At the moment, that's fairly liberal. It's most likely that if we have to go down this path, that our school hours will be Monday to Thursday 8:30 to 4:30, Friday 8:30 to 4 p.m, 37 hours. We already pay for a 38-hour week. Meeting times, we'll have to bring those forward. Those who have been here for a long time know that we've always started meetings at 4 o'clock. We'll bring those forward to 3:45 and finish at 4:45. But the early finish time on Friday will compensate for the fact that those meetings go longer or go past that 4:30 finish time. These are all things that are going to have to be responded to, considered and answered as we go into this new agreement with the introduction of time in lieu. We've already made a decision how, with regard to parent-teacher-student conferences and how to make this as fair as possible. As you know, we've always had 2 dates in each semester. That will continue, but they won't both be in the evenings. We will continue the booking system that's always operated. We'll continue the 5-minute appointments that have to be reserved. We'll offer them as both face-to-face and Zoom options. And there's the dates there. 1 evening and 1 school day, finishing at 1 o'clock. That day becomes an independent learning day for students, and it provides the compensation for the evening before being on site. I'm hoping that will work. For our non-teaching staff, we'll have to look at what that actually means for you, particularly in regards to the second day there. That will only apply to those staff that have to be at parent-teacher interviews. The tone in the room feels full. Staff briefings. Have I missed a slide there? Excuse me. The staff briefings are not really affected by this, particularly if we find that, our start time is 8:30. We've always operated on that assumption in the past that it is 8:30, and hence the briefings on Mondays and Fridays begin at 8:30. We expect your attendance at those briefings. We have not gone back to requiring everybody in the one room or one location, which changed when COVID happened. We will maintain the Zoom approach, but we've got a slightly different model to experiment with this year. The Monday briefings, as you know, generally are input, they're information, updates and whatever for the week. Whereas the Fridays in week B, so it's only every second week, are generally about recognition and celebration, in particular the Mercy Moments. We'd like to trial the Monday briefings in group locations, and partly this is responding to the fact that we're hearing from people that it's become more difficult over time to connect with people, to be with people, to see and catch up with people. So we're going to trial this idea of those briefings occurring in these locations. It will still be a Zoom briefing that is zoomed into those places there. So depending on your year level or where the area that you're most connected to, if you could take a note of the location there, G4 for Year 7, H10 for Year 8, the Rice Campus staff room, Macaulay and Egan House, plus our performing arts staff, and this might work for our science team to come down here to the Whiten Theatre, and then Maguire and Rice House and our admin and wellbeing, development office and IT teams to meet in the chapel for that briefing. I will put those locations out for everybody to be able to see. Now the next area that the new agreement potentially has an impact on is sport. Although having said that, we had started some conversations last year around sport and reimagining that and perhaps rationalising some of the sports that we've been involved with. Emmanuel is very successful in the area of sport, as you know. I'd suggest that we get a lot of recognition for the success that we have in sporting competitions and the success of our students. But a rationalised approach will be required when the agreement comes into place. And we've been talking, as in leadership management and sports staff, talking about a 4-tier approach. And I'll just go through it. I think it's reasonably clear up there, but I'll just go through it. The first group of sports there are those for which we have school-based academies, and they are football, netball, basketball and cricket. We're not saying that those sports are any better than any other, but they are the sports that have academies in the school. And so we'll set a goal here of involving as many students as we can, but also the best of those students, with a view to accessing and competing in state level competitions. So that is, it's not just a friendly kick of the footy, it's genuinely serious about trying to get through the levels and be successful and take it as far as we possibly can. The second tier there is all of the whole school sports that we're already familiar with: swimming, athletics, cross country, and for the moment we've included clay target in that. And the goal there will again be local participation, but ideally proceeding to higher levels as well. The third one is probably the biggest change, and that is an in-school house and or year level based competition. I've listed those sports there. Doesn't mean all of them will happen all of the time. There may be some other sports that come into that list at different times depending on interest. And our goal there is about participation, maximising the opportunity for our students here at Emmanuel to experience those sports, to have a go, to be part of a team, to enjoy the whole experience of that, but we'll not be taking it beyond here. It will be in-house, as the word suggests. The fourth level there is one that has always actually run in the school. It's run very, very quietly in the background, and you may not be aware of it, but it's what I've called parent-sponsored sport. It's those sports that require equipment, a horse float to move the horse around, and so we can't do that ourselves. And we require parent participation in that. Most of those events, the students need school endorsement to be able to participate. We'll do that. We'll give them the endorsement that they need and registration and so on, but it will be dependent on parents to make those things actually happen. Why do it? Well, looking at our 2022 figures, there's a saving there of 40 to 50 days, 250 to 300 fewer classes that will need to be covered as a result of predominantly those ones in Tier 3 all going to external venues and beyond the local level. That's where the saving is for us. Fairly early days as far as this is concerned, needs a lot of further planning and with the implementation, but I have to acknowledge Alistair, wherever he is, for the work that he's also done. Thanks, Alistair. And not only his work, but actually a real commitment to changing this, because after 1 year in his role as sport coordinator, he also had formed the view that what we were doing was unsustainable going forward. So, new model to be trialled this year. Okay, I'm starting to run out of time. So, Normally at this meeting, I try to go through the priorities for the year, and I can't actually do that today because, as you know, we were working on a new strategic plan. We had various meetings both here and I think in the Emmanuel Centre where a lot of input and then later feedback was gained around future directions for Emmanuel College. It's not quite complete yet. We hope to be able to finalise and publish a strategic plan for the next 4 years, starting this year, later this term. But you can expect that some of these to see some of these things as priorities for this year. Not just for this year, the first one, an ongoing commitment to growth and a growth mindset, commitment to improving all aspects of learning and teaching. We're here for learning and teaching. It's our core business. And with that, the improvement in the use of and the facilitation, the benefits that we can get from Pivot and ARMs. Embedding the Mercy values, understanding what it means to be a Mercy school, embedding the 9 at Rice and the vertical senior structures that were implemented last year, revitalising and capitalising on our access to some of the best ICT infrastructure that any school around has, but again, for the purposes of enhancing teaching and learning. Not just because we've got fast Wi-Fi or good internet connection or whatever, but because we can use ICT to drive and benefit teaching and learning. We need to expand our environmental and sustainability credentials. Brooke is smiling as I say that because she's coming into that role this year with absolute passion for this area. We're going to begin to prepare for a review of the junior school curriculum and approaches. I'm not saying that will happen this year, but the groundwork for that review needs to be taken. This received a very, very popular response, strong response from staff last year at our meetings and again from parents through the school council and so on. To begin to explore a year 13 experience. Don't have time to talk about that today, but as I said, it was well received and we'll start exploring that. And through all of that, over that, under that, around all of that, an openness to the opportunities to be innovative and to be entrepreneurial, again, especially as it impacts on teaching and learning outcomes and school operations. All right, I'm looking at some information now. This is just regular start of the school year stuff, I guess. Our building committee, I want to thank David Gladman, who's been your staff rep now for the last couple of years on the building committee. And his term came to an end and I put out expressions of interest in that, and thanks to Sam Fayer for putting his hand up and taking on that role. Thank you to Ben and Jacinta on the consultative committee. Their terms have also concluded and they're not extending on that committee, so we do need 2 more members. And I put the dates of the meetings on there so that you can consider putting your hand up for that role. If we get 2 people express interest, you can do that by just speaking to me, or emailing me is probably better. If there are just 2, you'll be duly elected. If there's more than 2, we will need to run an election for membership there of the consultative committee. Thanks to Jackie and Ben, who after a number of years have finished their terms or stepped down from the OH&S committee, and we need 2 new reps there. And again, you can email me or Shirley and express your interest in that really important committee. One of the first dates you need to get into your diary is the 22nd of March for our open evening, because we need everybody here to make that work. It's straight after school on the 22nd of March, finishing around about 7:30. We have the Evening of Inspiration this year on the 4th of August in the Lighthouse Theatre. We've got a really amazing group of alumni to induct into the Inspiring Alumni. So hopefully we've booked the theatre, we're going back to the theatre and back to a really high-end, exciting night for that, and all staff encouraged to attend. We will have the official opening of the Science Wing and A Block during semester 1. We are dependent upon a date that the state government will give us for that. I don't know what it is at the moment. I'll let you know as soon as we do. We have a really exciting musical production this year in Frozen. I don't know whether you can remember the assembly in the Emmanuel Centre last year when we announced that, and there was a really strong response from the students to it, which to me said that we got the choice of musical, we got it right. We are doing that here in our own theatre. We've lost a lot of momentum as far as these sorts of shows are concerned over COVID, and we're rebuilding. And rather than booking the Lighthouse, we're going to do that from here. I acknowledge those 4 people on the screen there for the amount of commitment and energy that they're going to bring to doing this. Unless you've done it before, you won't know how much is involved. And lots of helpers are invited and encouraged and requested. Just continuing, the Staff Code of Conduct, the Mercy Education Staff Code of Conduct is our preeminent guide to staff expectations and requirements. And it's signed off now by completing the SALT unit as opposed to the old-fashioned read the document and sign it and submit a hard copy. All existing staff will have completed that, should have completed that SALT module last year. We'll all get that module again this year. That's what makes you compliant, I guess, with the expectations of staff within a Catholic Mercy school. We've got an audit happening this year. Not the most exciting of things, but the VRQA will be auditing our child safety minimum standards, which it is the sort of audit, I don't have concerns about this, but these are the sorts of audits that close schools if you get it wrong. So we absolutely have to be right to go on the 25th of July. If you have any questions about that, Michael is your go-to person with regards to the child safety standards. We will, over the course of this year, but as much as possible before the 25th of July, add into our risk assessment for excursions an area there that relates to child safety. Jason will be able to provide support with anybody completing risk assessments prior to excursions and so on, so please talk to him in regards to that. I need to just update you, sort of a slight shuffle in regards to our IT staff there. Peter has now assumed responsibility for Simon management and administration. He is the go-to person for all things Simon. He may not know your answer the first time you ask him, but you all know what Pete's like, and he'll make sure that he does know the answer, and he'll be able to help you with anything regarding Simon. That means that Tom has taken over AV responsibility from Pete, and with help, assistance from Logan. So anything that you really need to do with AV, please see Tom. It is best if you log or email your IT and AV requests there to the central email, and they will process all of them and get back to you. Same thing there in regards to assistance with anything to do with design, publishing, printing and so on. Melissa Crothers is our person who does all that for you. But we need a process, it's become bigger, and we need a process now whereby we can manage that for Melissa, and that will be through Montana's email. And they'll be prioritised and passed on to Melissa. Melissa only works 2 days a week. And so, and she has a lot of priorities for the school itself that we put first. The development office team can help with a number of those areas, and hence emailing Montana first. Renee continues as the Emmanuel Centre Coordinator, so please liaise with her for all, it's external bookings for the Emmanuel Centre. So if it's anything to do with external bookings and arrangements for the Emmanuel Centre, that's through Renee. I mentioned briefly that all our leave requests are transferring to EMS 360, and on Monday morning at the meeting we'll take you through that. So there'll be no more green forms. The senior school and its restructure, the vertical structure and so on, that came into being last year. There was a brief review of that at the end of last year, and Shane collected a lot of feedback from those of you who are involved in that structure, and there will be some additional clarity regarding roles and expectations and so on shared with members of that group at the senior school meeting. Probably just need to let you know that Suzanne had surgery last week and is going to be absent, I think, until around about the end of February. She might get back earlier. But a lot of those things that people would drop in to see Suzanne about, she's not going to be there. Probably email questions, whatever, to me. We're going to be working together there at the front, myself, Shirley, the main office, to cover things in Suzanne's absence. Just need to mention really, really quickly that Tom Gleeson, a past student, not to be confused with not to be confused. Tom Gleeson is a past student. Marg, how old is Tom? 29. Thank you. Tom is going to volunteer and work in our library half a day per week. And I ask you to be very supportive of that. Tom is a young man with a high level of autism that impacts his ability to work full-time, and he already does this type of volunteering work at Woodford, and has asked if he could do a couple of hours at Emmanuel. We've said yes on a trial basis, and we welcome him, but it may require a little bit of sort of understanding and preparation when taking your own classes to the library, with Tom's presence there. Was it Wednesday, Marg? On Wednesdays. Okay. So students commence next Tuesday, as you know, so we all back into professional dress on Tuesday. And last couple of slides, I just wanted to mention, as a Mercy School, how do we see that in action? Well, there's a few different ways and growing ways, I guess. But our community meal that began last year will continue each Tuesday, 5:30 to 6 p.m. during term time. Jacinta will share information with you as soon as she can in regards to that. But I would just like to acknowledge all of those staff who contributed, volunteered for that couple of hours last year. Over 850 meals were prepared and shared with a very diverse range of people with all sorts of needs that came in and joined us on Tuesday evening here in the cafe space and enjoyed that meal with us. This year, now that we've sort of got it well and truly structured the way we want it to, we'll be involving our senior students as volunteers in that as well. The Social Justice and Community Service Coordination role, one that will be shared with Jacinta, there was a late change there at the end of last year, and that position is vacant. And being the start of the year, I'd really like to encourage you to give consideration to that. This is not something that has to be done by a teacher. I would encourage those in non-teaching roles to consider the possibility of sharing this time with Jacinta. So please see me. You might like to talk to Jacinta first to get an insight. So there's Jacinta, and please let me know if you'd like to express interest in that. We hope to be reconnecting with Mercy Place this year after a couple of years of absence. A lot of our students over the years have spent time there with the residents and enriched their day enormously. It's still a challenge to get into the place. I have to say, I went up there for a meeting last week and I had to do a rat test and sit outside on the bench outside for 15 minutes before I could go in. Yes, yeah. So how we're actually going to get students in there just at the moment, we haven't completely resolved, but this is on our radar for this year. The laptop covers, which are made in East Timor, those of you new to our staff will be unfamiliar with this, but we have this beautiful relationship with Otoro, the community on Otoro Island in East Timor, an exceptionally poor and third world community, but rich in many, many ways that we don't know or experience necessarily. And there's a women's collective there who hand sew these beautiful laptop cases. And we've made a commitment to supporting that community by buying their laptop cases that every one of our Year 7 students receive when they get their laptop. They're on their way. I'm not absolutely certain they're going to be here for the day that we distribute the Year 7 devices, so we'll have to work that one through. I think this is the last slide from me. So I'm hoping that 2023 will be as close to a school normal year as we can possibly get after 3 very disrupted years. So that means we really need everyone on the same page and applying the Emmanuel expectations consistently. And consistently is the key word in that sentence. Every time we review things at this school, whether it be with staff, students or parents, the biggest criticism we get about what we do is that we are not consistent. That is to say, there are people among us who do not do things consistently according to what the expectations are. So that needs to be a focus or a challenge at the forefront for all of us. Our Emmanuel staff are expected to work collegially to achieve our improvement priorities and growth, to facilitate exemplary teaching and learning. Not average teaching and learning, not ordinary teaching, exemplary teaching and learning. To comply with all the OH&S standards and child safety requirements that you should all know, the code of conduct that you'll experience when you complete the SALT module. To communicate and act professionally and respectfully towards one another, and we're very good at that. To respect sensitive and confidential information. This may be more so teachers than others, but you regularly have access to student and family information that is sensitive and confidential. And we need to appreciate that it is confidential information. It's not for distribution. It's not for any other use than for its intended purpose. When on supervision, we need to be actively supervising, not necessarily congregating and communicating. We do need to be active in our supervision. And we at all times need to protect and enhance the good name and the reputation of the college, because all of us and all of our students benefit from that. And I guess just to finish, at the induction day on Wednesday, I said to our new staff there that, when talking about expectations, I don't go around with a clipboard, and no one from the management team goes around with a clipboard, checking and ticking off who's doing this one and not doing something else. And I don't think that we need to, because we all need to hold one another accountable. And I've always found that when I talk to students, they can tell me who is and who isn't doing what they should be doing. So if our students know, then so too do our families. And that's where the checkboard or the clipboard or whatever it was I just called it, that's where the checking occurs. It is happening all the time. It doesn't need me to go around and do it. And we all need to be conscious of that point. And that's how we do achieve all of these things, I think, and make sure that we protect that reputation and so on. So look, I'm conscious that I've gone over time and I need to stop and I need to invite Steve to come forward and go through a couple of things. I'll just take a very, very quick break there while we change over the laptop and we get ready for, because Michael will follow Stephen. There we go.
Just check with that. Oh, you've done something with I'll be careful. I shouldn't be doing this.
No, you shouldn't be.
You running a video?
No.
Oh, yeah. Break me fingers. You're not running. Oh,
Just going to dance.
Give it a sec. We might have just shut down. Yeah. I said to Logan, I shouldn't be doing this.
Yeah, his job description is
Yeah,
not
sorry.
revealed and he's already breaking it.
Oh, we might just.
Oh, that should be on the screen, should it?
Steve's laptop in the past has had a bit of a weird thing going on.
Connectivity. Oh, hang on, wait for it.
Yep, that's good. Just don't touch anything. Don't even touch the keyboard.
Yeah, just.
Oh, hey, what did we say?
I didn't.
Simple instructions.
Bring him back. Yeah.
Oh, you stop for 1 second. It was
Busted.
a riot.
Thanks everyone. If you'd like to grab your seat, we'll keep on going. We've got to be finished by 1 o'clock for lunch. Thank you.
All right. That got some of you. All right. Well, we will kick off. Just with all those things that are exciting. Peter has covered off on a couple of things that I've got just listed here, so I'll whip through this in about 10 minutes for you all. But just to kick off with a couple of really important ones, just around being part of the Emmanuel family and some different things that we do here, and that is around our Student and Staff Support Fund. Whilst I can't tell you all the wonderful things that these two funds have done, they do make meaningful differences to people's lives when life gets a bit tricky. So through our payroll, part of the tradition here at Emmanuel is purely voluntary, that if you'd like to contribute to help people out at different times, that gets done through the staff and the Student Support Fund. So we also do have a food bank that the Staff Association run, but in terms of a staff support fund, where people get unwell, where life just gets a bit tough for some of our staff, there are meaningful ways that we can contribute, and very practical ways, whether that be providing a cleaner to help out for a while around home, while the staff member might be limited in their mobility. The Student Support Fund, pretty basic in terms of what that does, but it does make some big differences for students in terms of uniform and books. You guys will know out there when you're teaching and working with these kids that if they aren't wearing the right shoes, and maybe there's a reason for that, if their shirts are ripped or something's not quite right, if you can just flag that with a member of the management team, we can look that we might be able to throw a new blazer their way or a pair of shoes their way to help them out, because sometimes they just can't afford it at home. So please do that. It's a confidential process, as I said, that we do run through for that. To do that, you just need to email payroll, the payroll email at Emmanuel, and that'll go through and we can set that up. So those that already have that in place, some contribute $2, some contribute $20 a pay. It's purely up to you, however much you'd like to do. The other one I'd like to give a bit of a plug for is the Reuben Centre in Kenya, that one of our alumni, brother Frank O'Shea, set up many years ago. And it's another one that the staff do contribute towards that and to support that really worthy cause. And I'm not really au fait to run through what the Reuben Centre does, but needless to say, it provides great resources for students over in Kenya, and also for a lot of women in terms of health. I'm looking to Brooke and also to Tracy, who probably know a lot more about it than I do. So a really worthy cause that you can make a small contribution to, and it goes a long way over there.
If they want information, they can email.
Yep, please do. All my topics are really random, so I just jump around a lot. But from payroll deductions through to the maintenance and cleaning team, and Peter did mention these guys a bit earlier, but to Jason Beveridge, who runs the facilities team, a big thank you to him and the work that he does. I've got a few photos up here just so that you're aware of some of the staff that you'll see floating around. I haven't got Michelle up here. Michelle's the really small one that buzzes around everywhere. Mark is the really tall guy that you'll see a couple of days in the maintenance team, but also as part of our cleaning team. Okay, they are moving around different areas. Unfortunately, Sarah, who's been with us for 2.5, 3 years, is moving on to disability support, and she's only here for another 4 weeks. So we lose Sarah. So Sarah's the one with the Canadian accent that you might know. The big headphones. You really have to yell at her. You probably should know, hopefully you all know Glenn and Jerry. But up here I've got a picture of Ryan, Carol, Debbie, Jack, who's in the facilities team, and Chrissy and Marlene. Jason unfortunately had a couple of Sarah, but also another resignation just last week. So what hair he's got left has really been pulled out. So we really need your support for the cleaning team and helping that team out. So that's not, just leaving the rooms tidy, making sure there's not a whole heap of rubbish or broken pencils. Just that quick little couple of minutes at the end of a class, just say, guys, just pick up whatever's on the floor. And that means the cleaning team can come through and actually can vacuum and don't have to pick up and rearrange furniture. Okay, classrooms should be left with furniture back into place. The lights are off. Windows are closed. I think it's D1 or D2. Regularly that window is left open because I see that as I walk out the back door there. Air purifiers off, please, at the end of the day as well. Okay. So those sorts of things, that quick little clean up at the end of the day will make the cleaner's job a hell of a lot easier. Also, that active supervision that Peter touched on in terms of yard duty and up and down the corridors, that is really, really important. It makes a big difference for our cleaning team, and our cleaning team do appreciate that. We did have some staff last year that trialled in the cleaning and walked away because of some areas were just left in the state that they were, with food scraps and those sorts of things left around. So I'm really asking if as staff we can help to drive that level of respect for our cleaning staff and show that we do value them, and also the facilities team there. So I ask your assistance with that. Peter touched on some of these numbers, but I love numbers, so I'm just going to throw them up again. $21 million worth of works. It is for our students, that you guys have the great facilities to teach in and get some great results for our kids. If there is anything broken or anything damaged, please report it as quickly as you can via the maintenance link on Simon. That way it goes straight through to Jace and Jack, and they can just work out how that needs to get done and get fixed up. We know that if there's one little hole in a wall, that one little hole becomes a bigger hole, and then a second hole will follow. So it it's about trying to get onto these things early. That goes with graffiti. The guys have done a terrific job trying to clean up as much as they can across the college, so that when students come back in, it is as clean, and they don't see that as something that we should do, and they don't have to put their initials next to the initials from 2022. Okay. Peter touched on COVID. If you want a rat kit, come and get them. We've got heaps, and they will expire at some stage. We went from not having much to having heaps and heaps and heaps. So please, if you want masks, if you want rats, come and grab them, please. Peter touched on the 5 days. Same with all illnesses. Needless to say, in terms of sanitizer, we're moving away from having it in every room that we've had for the last couple of years. We just found there was too much damage in terms of sanitizer bottles getting picked up and moved around at different classrooms. So it will be in the main areas. The main area, as you come into reception through those automatic ones, we'll continue to maintain those. But if you'd like some additional sanitizer bottles, we did manage to procure some at the end or during last year or the year before. So we have a whole heap of the little Dettol ones. If you haven't got your own, if you'd like one just in your bag or to have in your office, more than happy to provide that to you while we've got those in stock. In terms of OH&S, just to give it a plug, it is really important. We are all responsible for this together. If you do see something that you think's not quite right or needs improvement, please raise it with OH&S committee reps, which are on the staff notice boards that you should be familiar with or can get familiar with. EMS 360, as it is for our leave, and Jace will run through that on Monday, but it's also where we log our incidents, and whether that be a kid gets hit in the head with a ball playing sport, or you have a trip over a bit of the concrete or something like that. When those things come through, we can then action those. Okay. Just really, don't get complacent in terms of lifting things. Just work with pairs if you need and get that assistance, and don't think you can lift everything. Pete Sass. ICT, Peter touched on Peter's move away from the AV, so I won't go through that anymore. The one up there that you should be aware of is the two-factor authentication. If you haven't got that sorted out already, or having troubles, please see the IT boys and they'll get you up and going. It should only take once, and it should run for the month. Okay, it's not going to be every time you log in. It's just there once a month. Building works. The G Block staff office on the ground floor. I'm hoping we got the certificate of occupancy on Wednesday. Just got a little bit of strip to go on the glass, and then we'll be done. The Gould Adventure course is done, and I understand Sophie or Lucy has the Lucy Al-Haj told me yesterday on patrol that she has the record for that at 1:24. So if anyone would like to go and give that a go, you're more than welcome. So a great little addition up the back there, and we've got some additional stairs to get up into that area, so that'll help with supervision. And there will be obviously rules to go with that. The Ardley Street fence on the north, you might have seen, has been completed. There is an emergency gate down there. It does have a lock on it, so if we need to get an ambulance on there, onto the lower oval, bottom oval, we can. The gates we're still working through to go out here on Ardley Street there. Peter touched on the works coming up, the Edmund Rice Centre. How exciting is that? Yeah. Science wing was fun, but Leanne and Shane, do you want to give me a hand with this one as well? No. Hopetoun Road access way, so we're looking to bring a roadway in off Hopetoun Road, but also the maintenance and the storage shed relocation. So obviously coming away from Rice Campus, the maintenance shed's hopefully going to get moved. There's a bit of work, other little smaller jobs to go around the Urban Rice Centre. Also with the industrial skills, because our textiles area we need a bit more, still going over the road for that for some of our classes. That will be going down into the industrial skills where the PE equipment, outdoor equipment is. So the timing of that we're just working our way through, but we'll see what the expressions of interest and tender happens with the Edmund Rice Centre, and that'll work out what we do going forward. This bloke up here is still pretty happy. He's not here today, but he will be here on Monday. He has got his new bus, but he also has a new bus booking form, so it's all electronic now. No more paper up there, so that's really a good step in the right direction. So please, the link is on Simon, and you can do it there. Jaffa has said no bus booking form, no bus, and it has to be that way. to make life easy or make life workable for Jaffa when he's driving the bus, and those last minute, oh gee, I need a bus tomorrow. If you can please allow that time so Jaffa can do that, that'd be great. The Rosa bus is still around. The old Mitsubishi bus that we had is still available, and staff will be able to drive that, but we've got a bit of work to do there to make sure we've got everything ticked off. And just so you're aware, things such as when you think, let's just jump on the bus to grab a town bus around, that's the sort of level of price increases that we've got. So, yeah, walking's a good option, or just stay on site and use the adventure course. Emergency management, I know we all know this, but please, for those that are new staff, that you would have run through on Wednesday, but this is, we have to do this twice a year. The emergency announcement will come over the PA. It could be a full school evacuation, it could be just a building evacuation, as we did with G&H blocks at the end of last year in Term 4. The lockdown code is still Mr. Lock, so Mr. Lock, please report to C3. That means there's something dodgy. Mr. Lock is dodgy in C3, so keep well away from that classroom, okay, or that area. That's the code there. A lockdown might also be just as simple as a gas leak, where we just need you to stay inside and wait for the specific instructions, okay? Just a reminder where the evacuation locations, so the RISE campus, which will have a drill in Term 1 to get staff and students familiar with that. And also is the lower courtyard near the fence towards the gardens there. And the top oval or the bottom oval are the two for this campus, and that will depend on where the emergency might be. Staff not teaching or responsible or directly responsible for students, you are wardens. You need to report to generally the office and provide assistance. And that may include just checking off that a room's been vacated. It may be going stand at the gate and making sure that we don't have visitors come on site. We have moved away from ticking the roll that we've got all our visitors accounted for off Simon, that we've got all our students accounted for. We go and check rooms as opposed to doing that, okay? Mentioned that one. We had a drill at the end of last year. The staff and the students that participated in that did really well. There was a lack of staff reporting as wardens. I think we had half a dozen. Nowhere near enough as what we need, okay? There should have been a lot more staff available for that. So there are some things that we've learned on how we can do that better from the warden's end, and we'll put those into place and making sure those messages are really clear. The disappointing part is that we did have some staff in G Block that just sat there in their office and ignored the drill completely. Okay, I know they're drills, I know they're a pain in the bum, but we've got to do them. We've got to know how to do them, and we've got to do them well. The stage here, the Emmanuel Centre, have their own building-specific fire alarms, and that you'll hear those go off, and you need to evacuate. That sends a message through to Jason and my phones, and we respond accordingly. Okay. G Block has interconnected smoke detectors thanks to the cladding, which a bit more of that got removed as part of the other works that we did, the combustible cladding there, so please be aware of that. All other buildings are reliant upon the PA announcement. Okay. And that's all I had to whip through. Thank you all very much. Exciting stuff. Michael.
Break where you just chat next to the person beside you while I set up, and we've got 15 minutes to go.
Quick. You've got a video, haven't you, Michael?
Yeah, I have.
Yep, cool. Yeah. Bada bing, bada boom. Oh, yeah. He said, I work for Simon now. Okay, sorry guys. I've overstepped. I apologise.
Okay, that's a really quick minute, but lunch is on the way, and I just wanted to add my welcome back to all of you. It's great to see you. Probably a bit of a shock to the system for some who perhaps just arrived back in the country from overseas and or off a beach somewhere. So it's great to see everyone again. We've got a Part A and Part B of our staff meeting this year. There's so much to cover that you'll hear on Monday for an hour or so from Claire and Justin and from Jason about some other really important matters as well. So I get the gig in the last 15 minutes, but as Peter mentioned in his presentation, we have a VRQA audit on child safety this year, and we're not doing this briefing because of that. We do this briefing at the start of every year. And of the many resources that are on the various websites around child safety. This particular image is the one that I think is my favourite, because it actually does remind all of us that this particular issue is everybody's responsibility, and is actually the single most important thing that we do when we work in a school. So I'm going to talk for a couple of minutes, and then we're going to listen to about a 6-minute video where the two of the commissioners talk about the new 11 child safe standards that most of you hopefully are aware came into place in June last year. And just be, and I guess I remind people that if any of the issues that we talk about cause you any distress or angst, that there's plenty of support that you can access here at school if you need to. Just really clear around what our definitions are of child safety and child abuse. And I think for those of you that have worked in the school for quite some time, you will understand what these are and be aware of them. But it is something that the Protect website is a great spot for you to gain more information about. They're really important because we know that young kids are vulnerable, and some young people are even more vulnerable than others. And it's really important that we take steps to prevent any abuse happening, but also build this culture of child safety at our college. We can't assume that a child abuse does not and cannot happen within our school or within the community. They're also really important as well because they promote safety, they prevent it, they ensure that we've got processes in place in terms of responding and reporting. It drives a culture where we all put this at the forefront of everything that we do every day. We have minimum standards of child safety, and we keep young people safe. Just a few key dot points there. The child safe standards were updated in July 2022. We'll hear about all 11 in a sec. But the Protect website is a great spot for you to find out more information about that. Peter mentioned a couple of these particular documents, but I'll just highlight them again for you today in our briefing. The Emmanuel College Child Safety and Wellbeing Policy is located in the staff handbook. You can find it on staff knowledge banks on Simon. You can find it on the Emmanuel College's website as well. It is the policy that you should be familiar with around what the expectations are, not only for you as a staff member, but what we do as a school to provide a safe environment for our young people. We have 3 child safety officers at the college, even though it's the responsibility of everybody, but 3 people in the team that are designated to support young people if an issue is to arise is myself, Rachel Sloan, who's our wellbeing coordinator, and Claire Wrigley, the assistant principal of students. If something happens and you are in need of having to report something, one of the 3 of us can help you do that, and we'll go through the steps from there. The Mercy Education Code of Conduct, Peter mentioned. It is something that every single one of us who's sitting in this room need to abide by, and again you will know where that's located in terms of handbooks and things like that. Peter mentioned that each year through those SALT modules we get a reminder that we have to just read it and say that we've seen it again or looked at it and do that. And then we all have obligations about reporting. We can't just turn a blind eye or ignore something or say, no, that probably didn't happen, that's not true, or you perhaps might be a little bit confused with what actually happened there. We can't do those sorts of things. We have to learn from the mistakes of the past, and we know now that we all have obligations around reporting any type of child abuse. And so we need to do that, and we have a policy around those things as well. If we don't do these sorts of things, these are some of the issues that could arise. And Peter mentioned at the very worst, the school could be shut down as a result of not following these sorts of things. I think that's whilst that's really serious, the very first point is really the one that should mean that we all need to have this as our priority in the work that we do. So the commissioners are going to talk to you now for about 6 minutes, and then I'll just wrap it up and talk to you for about a minute about professional learning, and then we'll all go and enjoy some lunch. Or we might not hear it. Pete, Logan.
Children have the right to feel safe and be safe all the time, but safety doesn't just happen. In recent years, a number of inquiries have uncovered just how many children have been harmed or abused in organisational settings, when organisations don't have the right culture, systems, processes and understanding to prevent child abuse. The Child Safe Standards are a set of mandatory requirements that organisations must act on to protect children and young people from harm and abuse. Victoria has had mandatory standards for a number of years, and they apply to most organisations that work or volunteer with children. Organisations covered by the standards include businesses, clubs, not-for-profit or volunteer organisations, and government agencies. From July 2022, new Child Safe Standards apply to these organisations to help us keep strengthening our efforts to keep children safe.
At the Commission for Children and Young People, every day we oversee investigations into allegations of sexual, physical and psychological abuse of children in organisations. We know that the impact of childhood trauma stays with many children for the rest of their lives. Victoria's Child Safe Standards are now more aligned with the national principles for child safe organisations. This integrates what we learned from the Royal Commission into institutional responses to child sexual abuse. The 11 standards have clear guidance for organisations with minimum requirements to keep children safe. This includes policies and procedures you need to have and actions you need to take to ensure that all children and young people are safe in your organisation. We also understand that every organisation is different. The steps your organisation need to take will depend on your characteristics and your role with children. You might be a large business with a high level of responsibility for children, or you might be a small volunteer-run group that only provides some services for children. Either way, you need to meet the minimum requirements for each of the 11 standards. It is important to remember that all of the standards and the minimum requirements are legal obligations. This means that your organisation must implement them all. You can't pick and choose.
Let's quickly run through the 11 Child Safe Standards. Child Safe Standard 1 requires that organisations establish a culturally safe environment in which the diverse and unique identities and experiences of Aboriginal children and young people are respected and valued. Child Safe Standard 2 means child safety and wellbeing is embedded in organisational leadership, governance and culture. Child Safe Standard 3 requires that children and young people are empowered about their rights, participate in decisions affecting them and are taken seriously.
Child Safe Standard 4 means families and communities are informed and involved in promoting child safety and wellbeing. Child Safe Standard 5 means equity is upheld and diverse needs respected in policy and practice. Child Safe Standard 6 means people working with children and young people are suitable and supported to reflect child safety and wellbeing values in practice.
Child Safe Standard 7 requires the organisation to have processes for complaints and concerns that are child-focused. Child Safe Standard 8 means staff and volunteers are equipped with the knowledge, skills and awareness to keep children and young people safe through ongoing education and training. Child Safe Standard 9 means that the organisation's physical and online environments promote safety and wellbeing while minimising the opportunity for children and young people to be harmed.
Child Safe Standard 10 means implementation of the Child Safe Standards is regularly reviewed and improved. Child Safe Standard 11 means policies and procedures document how the organisation is safe for children and young people. A child safe organisation considers the diverse circumstances of each child. It recognises some children are more likely to be at risk of harm and abuse than others and responds according to their different needs. Upholding equity and respecting diverse needs are relevant considerations in implementing all standards. Organisations need to give attention to the vulnerability and needs of individual children, including those children living with disability, children from a culturally and linguistically diverse background, those children and young people unable to live at home, LGBTQI children, Aboriginal children, children of different religions, and children who have experienced past trauma. Learning more about these children can help you protect them from abuse and harm. There is a specific standard that requires organisations to establish a culturally safe environment in which the diverse and unique identities and experiences of Aboriginal children and young people are respected and valued. Being able to express their cultural identity makes Aboriginal children stronger and safer. It is important because when Aboriginal children do not feel safe to be themselves and express their individual culture, the risk they will be abused by others increases, and it may reduce their willingness to report that abuse. Protecting children from abuse and harm requires effort from the whole community. Organisations need to help parents, carers, families and communities play their part in protecting children by involving them in the organisation and providing them with information to understand their approach to child safety.
We know the overwhelming majority of people who work with children have their best interests at heart. And we've seen many organisations put in great work to make sure the children they work with are valued and respected, protected from harm, and empowered to speak up about safety concerns. But it can be too easy for people to think that child abuse in organisations is something that only happened in the past, or that could never happen in their organisation, meaning they do not put in the effort needed to think about what kinds of risks may exist and how they can be managed. It can be too easy to act on outdated myths about child abuse, to think that what children say is less reliable than what adults say, or that only certain types of adults can pose risks to children. And it can be too easy to get your child safety policies and systems in place, but not realise that child safety has to be constantly reviewed, refreshed and embedded in your organisation. Based on what we see in our work at the Commission, I can tell you, your work to implement the Child Safe Standards is as important as ever.
At the Commission for Children and Young People, we are here to support you and have a range of information, guidance and resources available. Depending on the type of organisation you work in, such as schools or early childhood education services, you can also contact one of the co-regulators the Commission works with to enforce the standards. Take action now by visiting the Commission's website to better understand your obligations under the standards.
So there are the 11 in a bit more detail. Still a few more resources to be put together around this, but the CYYP and Protect are the two places where you can get more information, but we'll get the 11 standards up in some posters around the staff areas like we used to have the 7, just there as that visual reminder. The 4 points that are different, in particular, we've gone from 7 to 11, those ones about involvement of families and students, the focus for safety for Aboriginal students. One about risk of child abuse and online environments is one that I think we can all help and support our students with, as well as governance systems and processes as well. And all of these come about due to the Ministerial Order 1359, which is part of this. Just a quick reminder, every single one of you who is a teacher or learning diversity assistant is required to do the online mandatory reporting module each term 1. Those of you that work in admin and non-teaching roles where you're working pretty closely with students, we would encourage you to complete that online module. Most people know where the link to that is on Simon, but if you've got any questions about that, please let me know. In terms of the online sharing system. Just the 4 critical responses. This poster here is around many staff offices and so forth. There's 4 steps that need to be completed if something does come to your attention and how you respond to that. And finally, key things to remember. I'll let you have a read of that. The professional learning slides that I was going to cover, we will put in part B of the staff meeting, and they probably link a bit better with Justin and Simone's presentation around teaching and learning and all of those sorts of things as well. So that is it, except for the last point that I was asked to just put in today. Similar to child safety, but in terms of our duty of care, particularly with all of our students at the college who have particular medical needs, particularly the ones that are a little bit more serious. Kylie has been updating the posters that get located around staff offices and so forth, and again, you can find the links to those on Simon. But it's really important at the start of a new year that you check those posters, see who the students are in your year level that you're working with, who might have a medical condition and therefore then know how to perhaps help with that. that. There will be some staff that will be required to do a little bit of extra PD around some of our students with higher medical needs and how to help those people if something happens to them. But really importantly for our new staff, but probably just a reminder for all of our staff, for our new staff, an email was sent to you about requesting you to set up an Operoo, the app, and a profile on your phone. But a reminder for all of us that we do need to have that Operoo profile set up on our phones so that any of the classes that we're responsible for, we can get them emailed or loaded onto our profile, so that if you're taking your class on an excursion or if you're going on a camp with a group of students, you've got all that medical details, emergency contacts and all of those sorts of things right there. If you need any help with any of that, see Kylie at reception. It's 1:03. I'm really sorry to have taken 3 minutes over the time, but that's it for Part A. Welcome back. Part B will be on Monday at 9 a.m. Here again, and it will be much shorter. We probably hope, even though we've allocated an hour and a half, we hope we'll be able to get through that in about an hour or just a bit over on Monday. If you're not involved in a meeting this afternoon, the time is yours to do some planning and getting yourself ready and all of that sort of stuff, or just catching up. Welcome back, and really hoping we have a great 2023. Lunch is out in the cafe space, thanks to McMahon, so enjoy catching up with people.